I was in the middle of making grilled cheese, the kind Lily liked extra cheddar crusts cut off. It was a quiet Friday evening in Eugene, Oregon. The rain had finally stopped, and the sky outside was that shade of gray that almost looked silver. Lily was in the living room humming to herself while coloring a picture of a unicorn in her sketchbook. Just another ordinary evening in a life I had patched back together, one broken piece at a time. Then the doorbell rang. I didn't rush to answer. We weren't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and glanced through the peephole. And there she was. Jessica, my wife. The woman who vanished from our lives 9 months ago, without a single word, standing on my front porch, with a tote bag slung over her shoulder, and a look on her face like she'd just come home from the grocery store. Not even an ounce of shame, no sadness. Just that same old half-smile she used to wear when she wanted something. I opened the door, but didn't say a word. My brain couldn't process fast enough. It was like watching a ghost step into the light. "Hey," she said, her voice light too casual. Can we talk? Can we talk?" That's how she opened after vanishing, like a puff of smoke, leaving me to explain to a 5-year-old why Mommy didn't kiss her goodnight anymore. I didn't answer. I couldn't find the words. My hands gripped the edge of the doorframe. She stepped forward like she still belonged, like nothing had changed. She looked good. That part hurt. Her hair was longer, her skin clearer. She had that glow people get after a long vacation, not after abandoning their family. "I've been away." "I know," she said, eyes flicking past me into the house. "But I've done a lot of thinking. I want to see Lily." And just like that, she said her name. Like Lily was a doll she left behind on a road trip and now wanted to pick up again. Behind me, I heard the tiny creak of footsteps. Lily was peeking around the corner, eyes wide. She froze when she saw her Jessica bent down a little. "Hi, baby," she said gently. Like nothing happened. Like 9 months hadn't passed. Like she hadn't missed a single birthday, a single school pickup, a single nightmare. Lily didn't move, didn't smile, didn't speak. "She doesn't remember your voice," I said. Finally, Jessica straightened up slowly. "Don't be like that, David. This is hard enough." "Hard," I laughed, bitter. You don't know the meaning of the word." She tried to walk past me. I stepped in front of her. "You don't just show up like this." Her eyes narrowed. "I have a right to see my daughter. I almost lost it right there." "You gave up that right the second you left her sleeping in bed while you snuck out with your suitcase and your lies." I didn't yell. I didn't need to. The quiet in my voice did more damage than screaming ever could. Jessica's eyes glistened, but I didn't buy it. She always had tears ready when they could serve a purpose. I made mistakes. "David," she set a hand on her chest like she was the victim. "I was lost." "No, you weren't lost." I said, "You just walked away." Silence stretched between us. Rain began again. Soft but steady, Lily was still watching, frozen in place. Like if she moved, the whole moment might collapse. I turned to her. "Sweetheart, go back to your drawing, okay?" She nodded, slow, cautious, and backed into the living room without saying a word. Jessica watched her go, her jaw tightening. "I just want to fix this." I looked her dead in the eye. "You can't fix something. You broke on purpose?" That was the moment something shifted. Her shoulders stiffened, her charm cracked. And I knew this wasn't about guilt. It wasn't about Lily. It was about control. Jessica had come back not because she missed her daughter, but because something on the other side of her escape plan had failed. And now she wanted her safety net back. Well, I wasn't the same man she left behind. I stepped back and closed the door slowly between us. I didn't slam it. I didn't lock it with anger. I just ended the conversation. She knocked once more. I didn't answer. Inside, Lily had gone back to coloring, though her hands trembled slightly with each stroke of the crayon. And I stood there staring at the closed door, knowing this was just the beginning. Tomorrow, I'd call my lawyer, because Jessica might have thought she could walk back into our lives like she never left. But I had news for her. This time, I'd be the one writing the ending. 9 months ago, I woke up to an empty bed. Jessica's pillow was cold. Her phone was gone. Her side of the closet had been cleared out with surgical precision. No note, no voicemail, not even a passive-aggressive sticky note on the fridge like she used to leave when she was upset. Just silence. I checked the baby monitor. Lily was still asleep in her room, thumb tucked under her cheek, breathing steady. Completely unaware that the woman she called Mommy had already stepped out of her life. At first, I thought something terrible had happened. That maybe Jessica had been taken, had an accident, or worse. I called her phone straight to voicemail. I checked with her work they hadn't seen her in days. I filed a missing persons report. Spent hours driving through town, retracing her usual routes. Gas stations, gyms, her sister's house in Corvallis. Nothing. 3 days later, the police called. They had found her safe in a rental cabin just outside of Bend with a man I had never met before. They told me she was fine, she didn't want to be found, and that she had made a choice. I didn't cry. Not at first. I think part of me had already been grieving her for months before that morning ever came. The late night workouts, the new perfume, the secretive texts, and the "I'm just tired" responses. When I asked if we were okay, I saw it all. I just didn't want to admit what it meant. The signs were there, I just didn't believe she'd actually go. That night, I sat in the kitchen while Lily slept in the next room and scrolled through Jessica's Instagram. Her last post was a latte and a quote about self-discovery. No pictures of Lily. None of us, just perfectly framed shots of her brunch and sunlight on hotel sheets. As if her life had never included a daughter with asthma or a husband who folded laundry at midnight, I deleted the app. The next morning, I stared at Lily while brushing her hair for preschool. She had my eyes, Jessica's smile. She kept asking where Mommy was. I told her Mommy was on a trip, and each time I said it, I hated myself a little more. Because it wasn't a trip, it was an abandonment. She left not during a fight, not in the heat of passion or rage, she left in silence. That's the kind of leaving that cuts the deepest. No warning, no closure. Just absence like a switch flipped. One day she was here, the next. She was a memory with teeth. And maybe what hurt the most wasn't that she left me. It was that she left Lily. I could have swallowed the heartbreak, the betrayal, even the humiliation. But how do you explain to a 5-year-old why her mom doesn't call on her birthday? Why she doesn't show up for ballet recitals or send postcards from wherever she ran off to? How do you explain to a child that she wasn't enough to make her mother stay? There were nights when Lily would crawl into my bed holding the stuffed bunny Jessica bought her when she was born. She'd ask me in the smallest voice, "Do you think Mommy misses me?" And I'd lie every time. I'd say, "Of course, sweetheart, she loves you very much." But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. Weeks turned into months. I stopped checking my phone at midnight. I stopped jumping at the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I started keeping everything documented. Every missed holiday, every expense, every doctor's visit, every moment Jessica missed, I wrote it down. Not because I planned on using it against her, at least not back then, but because I needed to prove to myself that I was showing up, that I was still here. There was one morning, I remember it so clearly, Lily had the flu. She was burning up, vomiting every hour I was alone. I hadn't slept in 2 days. I was kneeling on the bathroom floor, holding her hair back, whispering that it would be okay while she sobbed for her mom. And all I could do was hold her and lie again. That was the moment something inside me hardened. I stopped making excuses for Jessica. I stopped wondering if she'd come back. Because even if she did, she didn't deserve what was waiting here. She didn't deserve Lily's hugs or her bedtime stories, or the way she hummed in her sleep. She didn't deserve the life she walked away from. And that's why when she showed up at my door 9 months later, asking to see her daughter, like she'd just gone out for a walk, I didn't let her in. Because I remember every single day she didn't call, every birthday party she skipped, every school pickup when Lily scanned the crowd, hoping to see her mother's face, and then looked down. Disappointed Jessica might have been the one to give birth. But she wasn't the one who stayed. She wasn't the one who held Lily's hand when she got her flu shot, or kissed her forehead when she cried over a scraped knee. She wasn't there for the night. Terrors, the fevers, the questions, the silence. And for 9 months, I learned how to be everything Lily needed, even when I felt like nothing at all. So no, Jessica doesn't just get to come back and play family again. Not after what she left behind. Not after what she taught me about love, about absence, and about what it really means to be a parent. And if she thought I would just stand aside and hand Lily back over like some weekend toy, she was about to find out how wrong she was. After Jessica disappeared, the silence in the house didn't come all at once. It crept in day by day, hour by hour, like fog through the cracks of a home that had stopped breathing. At first, it was just her absence in the mornings. No clink of her coffee mug. No hairdryer humming behind the bathroom door. Then the silences got heavier, louder, until even Lily noticed. Why is it so quiet? Daddy. Because when someone leaves like that, they don't just take their clothes. They take the noise, the energy, the heartbeat of the house. I had no choice but to adjust. I became everything I learned how to braid hair badly. At first, Lily would giggle at the crooked pigtails and call them spaghetti braids, but she wore them proudly to preschool anyway. I packed her lunchboxes with sticky notes that said, "You're amazing," even when I didn't believe it myself. I signed every permission slip, figured out how to get permanent marker out of the couch, and learned the hard way that glitter glue is never, ever your friend. At night, I read her 3 stories instead of 1, because that's what she needed to fall asleep without crying. Sometimes she'd wake up and wander into my room, crawling under the blanket with a quiet, "Can I sleep here?" And I'd always say yes. Not because I wasn't tired. God, I was always tired. But because she was 5. And 5-year-olds shouldn't have to learn how to live with abandonment. I gave up the idea of balance. Work came second. Friends faded. I turned down weekend invites, skipped happy hours. I became predictable routine. But I also became solid, not exciting, not romantic, but dependable. And that's what Lily needed. Sometimes I'd sit on the couch long after she went to bed, scrolling through old pictures on my phone. Photos from the days when Jessica used to dance with Lily in the kitchen, when we carved pumpkins together, when we thought we were happy. And I'd wonder, did she ever miss us? Or did she just rewrite the whole story in her head so she could sleep better at night? Because when people leave like that, they usually don't walk away from love. They walk away from responsibility. From the weight of being seen. Jessica didn't want to be a mother anymore. She didn't want to be a wife. She wanted a new story with a new character, where she got to be the misunderstood heroine chasing her truth. Fine, she could have it, but she didn't get to walk back into our lives just because the fantasy broke apart. There was a night early December, the first Christmas without her. I was trying to hang lights on the porch after Lily went to bed. It was freezing. My fingers numb. The damn strand kept shorting out. Half the bulbs were dead, and I didn't care. I stood there staring at it, this limp, tangled mess of wire, and suddenly I just cracked. I sat down on the steps and cried. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a slow, exhausted unraveling. Because I was tired. Because I missed who I thought she was. Because I had no idea how to do this forever. Because I hated that I still loved her in some small, traitorous corner of my heart. That night, Lily found me asleep on the couch. She put a blanket over me and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. We're still a family." And I realized she was right. It didn't matter how many people were in the picture. What mattered was who stayed when the camera was put away, who showed up, who carried the weight. And for 9 months, I carried it. I carried it through dentist appointments and ballet classes, through nightmares and stomach flus, through lonely dinners and broken lights, and silence that stretched like an ocean between us and the life we used to have. I didn't date. I didn't flirt. I didn't even think about moving on because I was already moving forward. Every day, I survived without her every night. Lily smiled in her sleep every morning. She ran into my arms with her blanket trailing behind her, like a cape that was healing. That was a kind of victory I never asked for, but somehow needed. And then out of nowhere, Jessica came back, like she hadn't watched us bleed and moved on. Like she hadn't missed Christmas and Lily's kindergarten graduation. And the time she had to get stitches because she fell at the park and kept asking for her mom while the doctor worked. Jessica missed all of that. She missed the slow rebuilding, the victories, the tears, the laughter. She missed the part where I stood in front of our daughter and took every hit the world tried to throw at her, and now she wanted to come back. No, not this time. This time I wasn't just a man waiting at the door with an open heart and empty arms. I was something else now. I was a wall. I had built it with sleepless nights and lonely meals, with bedtime stories and endless laundry. With love, with anger, with silence, with strength. And I wasn't about to let her tear it down just because she suddenly remembered the address. She made her choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. The night Jessica showed up, she stayed on the porch for 15 minutes. After I closed the door, I didn't look through the blinds, didn't stand at the window. Like some tragic husband waiting to be convinced, I just sat at the kitchen table opposite Lily and watched her slowly eat a single grape at a time. Like the world hadn't just tilted off its axis. I didn't tell her who was at the door. She didn't ask. The next morning there was no text, no call, nothing. And for a brief second, I let myself believe maybe it was over. Maybe she got the message. Maybe the silence could return to being sacred again, not haunted. But 3 days later, she came back. This time in broad daylight, I was out front trimming the hedges. Lily was drawing chalk flowers on the sidewalk. Jessica pulled up in a navy blue Mazda. I didn't recognize parked it right behind my truck and stepped out like she'd never left sunglasses, lip gloss, coffee in hand, not a trace of guilt. She walked right up the driveway and stood in front of me like she belonged there. "David," she said, her tone firm, too calm. "We need to talk." "No," I replied, not looking up from the trimmers. "We don't look." She started taking a deep breath. "I made mistakes. I was overwhelmed. Everything got too heavy. I know I hurt you. I know I hurt Lily. But I'm here now. I want to make things right." I turned to face her then. Not angry, just tired. Tired in a way that doesn't show in your eyes, but settles in your bones. You didn't just leave Jess. You disappeared. You erased yourself. And now you're back. Like you lost your keys or something. She blinked. I was trying to find myself. "You had a family," I said quietly. "You had a daughter. Did you lose her too?" Jessica glanced toward Lily, who had paused her drawing and was now staring at her from the sidewalk, chalk still in hand. Her body stiffened, unsure. "She didn't run to her. She didn't even smile. She doesn't remember you the way you remember her." I said, "That's what happens when you don't show up." Jessica took a shaky step forward. "I just want to spend some time with her. Reconnect. You don't have to. She's not a subscription. You can pause and resume when it's convenient." I cut in. She exhaled sharply. "You're angry, I get it. But this isn't just about you." "No," I said, "it's about Lily. And I don't know what story you've been telling yourself, but walking back into her life like this doesn't make you the hero." Her eyes narrowed. "So what, David? You're just going to keep her from me? Pretend like I never existed? You did that part on your own?" I said I just had to live with the aftermath. There was a long pause, the kind that stretches between people who used to share a bed, but now can't even find common ground to stand on. She broke it first. "I want to come back. I want to fix this." "You want to come back," I repeated. "Back to what? The family you abandoned. The child you forgot. The man you made invisible." Jessica's expression tightened. Her grip on the coffee cup firmed. I wasn't in a good place. I thought if I stepped away, I could come back stronger. I never meant for it to go this far. I nodded slowly. "You thought wrong?" She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Because the man she left behind, the one who begged her to stay, who tried to hold it all together, he wasn't standing here anymore. Now there was only the version she created with her choices. Jessica turned to Lily again, tried to smile. "Hi, sweetie." Lily didn't respond. She stood, looked at me, then turned and walked back toward the house without saying a word. Jessica's smile faltered. I followed my daughter. As I passed Jessica, I said one last thing without looking at her. "You don't just walk away from your family and come back when the world turns cold." She didn't answer. I didn't wait for one. Inside the house, Lily sat on the couch, hugging her knees. "Who was that lady?" she asked. I sat down beside her, heart cracking open again. "Just someone from the past." "Baby," I whispered. "Is she going to come back again?" I didn't answer right away, but I knew she would. And this time, I'd be ready. The following week, she started showing up like clockwork. Every other day around 4 p.m., right? When Lily was finishing her afternoon snack, Jessica would pull up, knock on the door, and ask to talk. Sometimes she brought a gift for Lily. A stuffed animal, a coloring book one time. A cheap bouquet of flowers that looked like they were plucked from a gas station bucket. She tried to mask her desperation with calmness, with fake smiles and practiced apologies. But desperation has a scent, and she reeked of it. I didn't let her in. Not once. The third time, she lingered longer than usual. I stood on the porch while Lily watched from the window inside David. She said, lips tight, "I have the right to see my daughter." "Not yet, you don't," I said. Arms crossed. "Not until the court says otherwise. She's my child too. Then maybe you should have acted like it when she needed you." Jessica took a step forward, lowering her voice like that might soften the sting. "Look, I made mistakes." I panicked. I felt trapped. But that doesn't mean I don't love her. You don't abandon someone you love. I said, my tone flat. You don't vanish for 9 months without so much as a birthday card. You don't let your daughter think she did something wrong. Her face twitched. That's not fair. What's not fair, I snapped, is me having to explain to a 5-year-old why her mother doesn't show up for Christmas? Or why her drawings keep getting torn up because they say Mommy and Daddy on them. Jessica's eyes darted toward the window, where Lily had now disappeared from view. She needs me. No, I corrected her. She needed you past tense, and you weren't there. That was when her expression shifted. The softness dropped, and something colder took its place. She realized the tears weren't working. The guilt wasn't landing. So she pivoted. I spoke to a lawyer. She said, her voice sharp. Now I can file for custody. You don't have the right to keep her from me. I didn't flinch. I'd been waiting for that card. Good, I said, do it. Because I've got a folder full of evidence that says you shouldn't even be near her. She blinked. What are you talking about? You think I wasn't documenting everything? I asked. Every missed holiday. Every text you didn't send. The footage from the preschool when you tried to take her without permission. Hotel receipts, photos, messages from the guy you ran off with. You've been spying on me. No, I said coolly. I've been protecting my daughter. She took a step back, and for the first time I saw the cracks in her armor. I was hurting, she murmured. So was Lily, I replied. But she didn't get to run away from it. She had to live through it. Jessica folded her arms. This is revenge. That's all this is? No, I said, this is consequences. She stared at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. And maybe she didn't. Because the man she used to walk over, the one who apologized when she cheated, who begged her to stay when she stopped coming home, that man was long gone. Now I was the man who raised our daughter alone while she chased her freedom. I was the one who stood in every gap she left behind. I was the one who dried every tear, who cut every crust off every sandwich, who showed up every single day when she couldn't be bothered to try. That night she sent a long message, I'm sorry for everything. Truly, but I want to be part of Lily's life again. I'm not asking for full custody, just a chance. A few visits. Please don't punish me for leaving. I didn't respond, because this wasn't punishment. This was reality. The next day, I picked Lily up from school, and she ran into my arms the way she always did. We stopped for ice cream on the way home, chocolate with rainbow sprinkles, her favorite. While she ate, I watched her tiny fingers grip the cone. Her smile unguarded real. And all I could think was how fragile all of this had been. Just a year ago, I remembered nights of holding her while she sobbed in her sleep. Nights she screamed in the dark, calling for a mother who never answered. Mornings she woke up and looked around the house like it was missing something important because it was. And I also remembered how slowly over time she stopped asking, stopped waiting, stopped hoping. There's a point where even a child stops leaving the door open, and that moment had passed. So no, Jessica didn't just get to walk back in and pick up where she left off, especially not when she was still playing both sides. Because 2 days later, I got a message from one of her old friends, someone who didn't even mean to send it. A screenshot Jessica in a group chat saying, David's being impossible? I'll play nice until the court date. Then we'll see. He's just using Lily to get back at me. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I printed the screenshot, filed it in the folder, and I called my lawyer full custody. I told him whatever it takes. He didn't hesitate. You've got more than enough. When I got off the phone, I sat on the porch with Lily's chalk drawings still fading in the evening sun. The unicorns, the flowers, the little stick figure of me holding her hand. And I knew this wasn't revenge. It was protection. Jessica had walked away, thinking she could come back when it suited her. That motherhood was a role she could audition for again after quitting mid-play. But Lily already had a parent, one who stayed. And no matter how hard she tried, Jessica was never going to erase that a week passed after Jessica threatened legal action. And for a few days, it was quiet. Too quiet. I knew it wasn't over. People like Jessica don't back down. They regroup. They rewrite the story until it paints them in better light, and when guilt doesn't work, they switch to pressure. I just didn't expect she'd go as far as she did. It happened on a Thursday. I got a call from Lily's kindergarten teacher just after lunch. Mr. Parker, she said, voice calm but firm. We had an incident this afternoon. A woman, Jessica, I believe, showed up at dismissal and tried to take Lily. My whole body went cold. She claimed she was authorized, that you had agreed. But something didn't feel right. Lily froze. She didn't run to her. She looked scared. That's why we stepped in. My heart was in my throat. Is Lily okay? She's in the office now, safe. But I thought you should come in. I was already in the car. The drive to the school was a blur of red lights and clenched fists. By the time I pulled into the lot, my hands were shaking. When I reached the office, Lily was sitting on the little blue bench under a framed poster that said, "Kindness counts." She looked small, folded in on herself. The second she saw me, she stood and ran straight into my arms. "I didn't go with her," she whispered. "I didn't want to." I held her tight. "You did the right thing." Jessica was already gone by then. Security footage showed everything. Her pulling up in that same blue Mazda. Walking confidently to the gate, telling the staff she was Lily's mother and would be taking her home early. And Lily, bless her, just stood there frozen, not saying a word. That silence probably saved her. She wasn't authorized to be anywhere near the school. That's what made it worse. She didn't just cross a line, she obliterated it. That night, I filed for a restraining order and emergency custody protections. My lawyer worked fast. We included the school footage, teacher testimonies, and Jessica's own messages. By morning, a court order was signed. Jessica was no longer allowed to make any contact with Lily without supervised approval. No phone calls, no visits, no unannounced appearances. I should have felt relief, but instead, all I felt was rage. Because she knew. She knew what she was doing. She knew she'd scare Lily, and she did it anyway. That night, I tucked Lily into bed and sat beside her a little longer than usual. She didn't ask about her mom. She didn't cry, but she did say something that gutted me more than anything Jessica had ever done. "Why does she want me now?" I took a breath. "She says she wants to fix things," I said. "But sometimes people say that when what they really want is to fix how they look to others, like pretend." "Yeah," I said. "Exactly like pretend." She nodded and pulled the blanket to her chin. "I don't want her to come to my school again." "She won't," I promised. I stayed by her side until she fell asleep. The next day, Jessica sent a text. "You're turning her against me. That's child manipulation. You'll regret this." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer. The thing about people like Jessica is they think love is a right. That being a parent is something you can claim like a prize after time off. But love isn't a title. It's not a name on a birth certificate. It's action, repetition, presence. And Jessica hadn't earned any of it. She left her daughter, and now that her other world had collapsed, whatever fantasy she'd been living in, she came crawling back, trying to put the pieces together with lies and legal threats. But what she didn't understand was that Lily wasn't just a name on a court document. She was a real little girl who remembered who picked her up every day, who stayed up when she was sick, who made pancakes shaped like stars just to get her to eat breakfast before school. She remembered the silence her mother left behind. She remembered the birthdays with only one chair filled. She remembered the crying, the confusion, and more than anything, she remembered the peace that followed when her mother stopped showing up. That weekend, I didn't check my phone. I didn't watch for headlights in the driveway. I took Lily to the park, just the two of us. We packed a picnic and sat under the shade of an old oak tree. She showed me how she could now swing by herself. No pushes needed. Her feet kicked higher and higher until she shrieked with laughter. She was light again. I realized something watching her up there. Every moment Jessica tried to claw her way back into our lives, she brought chaos, noise, uncertainty. But when she was gone, really gone, Lily flourished. And that's when it hit me. My daughter didn't need a part-time mother. She needed safety. She needed stability. She needed truth. And that meant I had to be willing to fight not just for custody, not just for legal rights, but for Lily's peace. For the kind of childhood that doesn't leave bruises in the form of unanswered questions and broken promises Jessica could threaten. She could cry, she could file motions, and post about parental alienation until she turned blue. But she was the one who left, and I was the one who stayed. The courthouse smelled like old carpet and cold coffee. It was a gray Monday morning, and everything about the building felt designed to drain emotion. Beige walls, dim, lighting a clock that ticked just loud enough to remind you that time was crawling. I sat on the bench outside the courtroom in a suit I hadn't worn since my brother's wedding. Lily wasn't with me, of course. She was with my sister, probably making slime in her kitchen or watching cartoons with her cousins. Somewhere far from all this. And that's how I wanted it. She didn't need to see what came next. My lawyer Michael sat beside me, calm as always. He had that unnerving confidence lawyers develop after years of dealing with lies dressed as heartbreak. "She'll try to play the victim," he said, flipping through the folder again. "Don't respond emotionally. Let the paper do the talking." "I'm not here to fight," I said. He looked at me. "David, you're here to win." Don't forget that Jessica arrived 5 minutes before the hearing. She walked in like she was attending a church service, white blouse, minimal makeup, hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. I almost laughed. It was the same outfit she wore when we baptized Lily, back when she still cried at bedtime stories and thought being a mom meant showing up. I wondered if she chose it for symbolism, if she thought the judge would look at her and see someone gentle, redeemable. She didn't look at me. Not once. Her lawyer, young, polished clearly. Overconfident, gave me a once-over and nodded like we were about to negotiate parking tickets instead of the future of a 5-year-old girl. When our case was called, I stood, adjusted my tie, and walked into that courtroom like I was carrying fire in my chest. Not rage, purpose. The judge was a middle-aged woman with steel gray hair and a gaze that missed nothing. She didn't smile, didn't nod, just read the file in front of her while the clerk listed off our names. Jessica's lawyer went first, and as expected, he painted her like a wounded bird. A mother lost in emotional fog now returned with clarity and a heart full of regret. "Mrs. Parker acknowledges her absence," he said, voice smooth. "She's not here to erase the past, only to heal it. She believes in co-parenting, in reconciliation, in what's best for Lily." He even paused at the word Lily, like it was a sacred term he'd just discovered. He said Jessica had suffered postpartum anxiety, that she had no support system, that she had to step away to survive, that she'd gone to therapy, that she had made progress. Then he turned toward me, smiled faintly, and said, "Mr. Parker, however, has responded by cutting her off entirely, by villainizing her. He's turned their daughter into a pawn in a battle. He refuses to let end." I didn't blink. When it was our turn, Michael stood slowly. No theatrics. He laid the folder gently on the table, opened it, and began. Inside were every receipt, every screenshot, every voicemail, every message Jessica sent, and then tried to bury. He started with the timeline. Day 1, Jessica left. No notice, no custody, handoff, no goodbye. Day 24, Lily's birthday, no card, no call day, 73, attempted unauthorized pickup at school, police report attached. Day 152, text message. Jessica referring to Lily as an anchor I wasn't ready to carry. Then came the photos. Jessica in another state with another man at a beach resort 2 weeks after she needed time to find herself. Then the teacher statements. The counselor notes the video footage. It was quiet in the courtroom as Michael read them aloud, one by one, with a calmness that felt almost surgical. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't point fingers. He just turned the pages and let the paper speak. Then it was Jessica's turn to speak. She cried. Of course she did. Her voice trembled. She said she didn't mean to hurt anyone. That David stopped loving her first. That she felt like a ghost in her own house. She admitted she ran, but said she was scared and alone. She swore she loved Lily. Swore she always had. She said, "I thought I was broken. But now I know all I want is to fix what I broke." She looked at the judge, then at me, then down at her lap where her hands were shaking. Just enough to be seen, but not enough to seem uncontrolled. And when it was my turn, I stood and said nothing for a few seconds. Just breathed. Then I spoke. I didn't come here to punish Jessica. I came here because my daughter needs consistency. She needs someone who shows up. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient. Always, I looked at the judge. She wasn't there. Not for 9 months. Not when Lily cried for her. Not when she was sick, not for birthdays, not for milestones. She left, and that absence, it wasn't quiet. It was loud, it was confusing, it was painful. I paused, and now she wants to walk back in like it was just a long vacation. But Lily's not a reset button. She's a child, and I'm here to protect her. Silence followed. The kind of silence that settles between people who know something. Irreversible has just been said. 3 days later, the ruling came in. Primary custody granted to me. Jessica supervised visitation every other weekend, pending review by a court-approved child therapist. Any violation, automatic suspension of rights. The paper was stamped and signed final. When the judge read the decision aloud in that same cold courtroom, Jessica didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just sat there, eyes wide, jaw clenched like the room had betrayed her. As we walked out into the parking lot, she caught up to me. I saw her heels clicking against the concrete, that same fire in her step that used to shake me. "Not anymore. You think this is over," she hissed. "No," I said. "You ended it. This is just the result. You humiliated me." "No," I said again, turning to face her. "You did that to yourself." "I just stopped hiding it." She stepped closer. "He's still my daughter." I met her eyes. "You had a daughter, and you lost her the minute you made her feel like she wasn't enough." She stared at me, but this time I didn't stare back. I turned around, walked toward my car, and didn't look back once. For the first time in this entire storm, I felt something solid inside me. Peace. The house felt different after the ruling. Not louder, not brighter, just still. Not the kind of stillness that follows shock or sadness. This was something else, something quieter than grief, but heavier than relief. It was the sound of an ending finally being honored, the hush after a storm that wrecked everything and left only what mattered. It was peace. Jessica stopped calling for a while. I don't know if her lawyer told her to keep her distance, or if she was licking her wounds somewhere. Either way, the silence was welcome. There were no more random texts at midnight, no emails full of manipulative promises, no surprise visits, just space. And that space gave us room to breathe again. Lily smiled more. She started humming again when she brushed her teeth. She danced in the hallway without looking over her shoulder. She asked for bedtime stories again, real ones. Not the quiet whisperings of distraction we used to tell, just to keep her from crying. She laughed like a child who wasn't waiting for a door to open that never did. And me, I slept. Not the half sleep I used to get, always one eye on the phone, one ear listening for tires in the driveway. I actually slept. Whole nights uninterrupted with dreams that didn't involve courtrooms or accusations or tear-stained voicemail recordings. One night, maybe a week after the ruling, I made Lily grilled cheese and tomato soup her favorite. She dipped the corners of the sandwich into the soup like she always did, making a mess of her plate and giggling at how much cheese stretched between bites. Afterward, she crawled onto the couch beside me, a stuffed animal tucked under her arm. We watched an old cartoon she loved. Nothing special, just two characters bumbling through silly adventures. But I watched her more than the screen. Her eyes lit up at the funny parts, her head resting against my arm. She was safe. She knew she was safe. And that was everything. Later that night, I walked into the kitchen to wash the dishes. There was a message on my phone. It was from Jessica. "I miss her. Please don't shut me out forever." I stared at it for a long time, not because it hurt, because it didn't. And that was the most unexpected part. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't aching or wishing things had gone differently. I didn't want to fix it, didn't want closure, didn't need to win. I had already won. Lily was laughing again. That was the victory. I didn't reply. I just turned off the phone and went back to the living room where the silence wasn't heavy anymore. The next morning, there were flowers on the porch. Roses, still in the grocery store, plastic half wilted. No card. I threw them in the trash without thinking. Maybe that seems cold, maybe it was. But forgiveness isn't about reopening the door. Sometimes it's just about locking it without bitterness and walking away for good. A few days later, I got an email from my lawyer. Attached was an audio file from the private investigator we'd used during the case. He had continued monitoring Jessica after the ruling, just in case she violated anything. What he found wasn't a breach. It was a revelation. She'd been meeting another man. Not the one she left me for. A new one. A newer fantasy. Same hotel Jessica used to visit back when she first disappeared. Same story, different name. The investigator said the timeline overlapped. Even while she was texting me, begging for forgiveness, telling the judge she just wanted her family back, she was already auditioning her next escape route. I didn't listen to the whole recording. I didn't need to. There was nothing left to understand. Jessica was who she had shown herself to be. Over and over. And believing her words now would be like trying to rebuild a house with ashes. That evening, I picked Lily up from school. She was wearing a handmade paper crown and holding a folder of finger paintings. When she saw me, she ran like she always did. No hesitation, no fear, just joy. On the ride home, she asked if we could stop by the lake. Just the two of us. We sat by the water's edge, skipping stones and talking about everything and nothing. The wind tugged gently at her hair. The clouds rolled across the sky like lazy ships. "Do you think Mommy still loves me?" she asked. I didn't rush to answer. I looked at her, at the smallness of her hands, at the trust in her eyes. I think I said carefully, "She loved the idea of you. The parts that were easy, but real love doesn't leave when things get hard." She nodded slowly. I don't miss her as much anymore. And I realized I didn't either. I missed who she used to be. The woman who cried when Lily was born. The girl who used to sing along to old records in our kitchen. But that person was long gone, and holding on to her memory didn't serve us anymore. When we got home, Lily went straight to the living room and pulled out her photo album. The leather-bound one Jessica insisted we start when Lily was born. It had pictures of all three of us smiling, blurry, beautiful. She flipped to a page with a photo from Lily's second birthday. Jessica was blowing out the candles with her. I was holding them both grinning, like the world was perfect. "She used to be good," Lily whispered. I sat down beside her. "People change," I said. "Sometimes they grow. Sometimes they disappear into someone you don't recognize." She looked at me. "I'm glad you didn't disappear." I ruffled her hair and smiled. "I did," I said softly, "but only for a little while. Then I came back. And this time I wasn't leaving." The weeks after that felt unfamiliar in a way I hadn't expected. Not lighter, not happier, just more real. There were no grand celebrations. No cinematic triumphs, no swelling music as we danced around the living room. Just small things, consistent things. Clean socks folded in drawers. School forms signed on time. Dinner at 6. Bedtime stories at 8. Laughter again, but the quiet kind, like we were still learning how to trust joy. Jessica didn't call again. Not for a while, but when she did, it came in waves, voicemails, soft, tearful, vague, then accusatory, sharp, filled with blame, then back again, pleading. Her voice swam between guilt and manipulation, like she couldn't decide which mask would earn her forgiveness faster. "I miss her, David. You don't have to be so cruel. You've poisoned her against me. Maybe we can talk. Start over." I didn't respond, not once, because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was finished. Forgiveness, real. Forgiveness isn't a door swinging open. Sometimes it's just choosing not to pick up the phone. Letting someone scream into the silence they created. And so I let her scream. And Lily. She flourished, the bags under her eyes faded. Her appetite came back. She stopped flinching when the doorbell rang. She started humming again when she colored, started sleeping through the night without waking from nightmares she couldn't explain. And one night, maybe 2 months after the court ruling, she walked into the living room holding a thick, dust-covered photo album I hadn't seen in a year. It was the one Jessica made when Lily was born. She plopped down beside me, cross-legged on the carpet, flipping through the pages. There we were in a hospital room. Eyes, puffy hearts, raw smiles, stretched too wide from the weight of joy. Me holding Lily. Jessica kissing her tiny forehead. The beginning of something we thought would last forever. "Do you think she looks at these?" Lily asked. I stared at the pictures for a long time before answering. "I think she does." I said, "I think she looks at them and remembers what she lost." Lily didn't say anything for a while. Then she pointed to one photo, me holding her in one arm. Jessica next to us, beaming. It was from her 5th birthday. Balloons in the background. Frosting on her nose. "She used to be good," she whispered. "People change." I wanted to say, people grow apart or rot from the inside. But I didn't say that. She didn't need my bitterness. Sometimes I said gently, people lose themselves, trying to chase something that was never real. And by the time they realize it, it's too late. She nodded slowly. Then she looked up at me. "I'm glad you didn't change." I smiled and ruffled her hair. "I did," I said, "but I didn't break that weekend." I took her hiking, just the two of us. No phones, no distractions, just boots against dirt and the sound of birds overhead. We followed the winding trail through the trees, talking about college, about getting a dog, about what color her next bedroom would be when we moved to a bigger place. She asked if we could build a treehouse. I told her we'd figure it out together. We didn't mention Jessica. Not once. Not directly, but I could feel the unspoken gratitude in her steps, in the way she reached for my hand, when the trail narrowed, in the way she laughed louder than she had in months. There in the woods, I found something I didn't even realize I'd been missing. Closure, not the kind you get from an apology. Not the kind you wait for while staring at your phone. This was quieter, more honest closure that looked like a little girl who finally felt safe again. Closure that felt like pancakes on Sunday mornings and hand-drawn cards taped to the fridge. Jessica thought bringing another man into our lives would destroy us. She thought replacing me, replacing Lily's stability, would collapse everything we'd built. But all she did was hand me clarity. A clean break, a second chance. And I used it to rebuild. Not for revenge, but for peace. Because revenge is loud, but peace is patient. It doesn't need to win. It just needs to last. And it has. One night as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me and asked, "Do you think I'll forget her?" I didn't answer right away. "You won't forget her," I said, "but you'll stop needing her." She thought about that. Then she said, "Good." And in that moment, I knew we'd finally turned the corner. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was healing. It was choosing who stays in your life by how they treat you when no one's watching. By how they stay when you're not perfect. When you're hard to love, when you're scared and tired and full of doubt. Jessica failed that test. But I didn't. So if you're reading this sitting in the wreckage of something you thought would last, wondering how the hell it all fell apart, let me tell you something. I wish someone had told me. You're not broken. You're becoming. Let her leave. Let the lies burn out. Let the silence grow roots. And when she comes back with regret, braided into her voice with apologies, wrapped in second chances, smile, because by then you'll know. She didn't just walk out on you. She walked out on the best thing that ever happened to her. And you finally learned what staying really means. You stayed for yourself. You stayed for your child. You stayed through the fire. And you came out cleaner than she ever expected.